Hello. Welcome to our chat this evening. We are live. We're going to give just a few moments for everyone to join. Thanks for joining. I see you coming in the chat. Thank you. Come on in. We're chatting live tonight. Welcome, my friend. How you doing? Hello.
Hi, Jamia. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. We're going to give just a minute or so for everyone to join in and chat with us this evening.
Makes sense. Let's give them a few minutes.
Hope everyone is having a terrific Tuesday today.
I don't know about you, Jamia, but it is cold over here. So
Yeah, a little cold and rainy here as well in North Carolina. So definitely staying warm inside today. I have so many joining, 45 people already in the room. So we're going to have a good chat today. We're going to give about one more minute. We'll start at 5.
and the funny timing was, Jamia, right before I logged in, my cats got in a fight, so I kicked them out of the room. So they won't get in the way on this.
Having nice fun on this cold day inside.
And I see
All
a
right.
comment in there asking, please record this, and don't worry, we're going to have it recorded. We're going to make sure posting clips of this. You'll have access to this after.
Oh, I see a comment from Trends and Moms. It's hot in Florida. We are jealous of that weather.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. Great. Great to have you. We're going to jump right in because we're not going to stay long. We know that today is a busy day, so we're going to get started. Today is a live Q&A session with our colleagues at uAspire, and so we're just so delighted that you stopped in to join us today. We're going to be answering questions about the FAFSA, which opened just a couple of weeks ago, live for everyone to complete. So if you have questions, we have been taking questions over our Instagram Q&A box over the last couple of weeks, but also we'll take some questions from the chat today, and we'll be answering those questions that we received, as well as some other key tips that we want to provide for you. My name is Jamia Tenney. I am the Director of Student Engagement Programs here at the Common App, and on behalf of the Common App team, thanks for joining us for this session. I am going to turn it over to my colleague from uAspire, Brendan, to introduce himself as well.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brendan Williams, and I work at uAspire. We're a nonprofit focused on helping students navigate college costs and the financial aid process. I've been doing this work with students for well over a decade now, and so what I'm here to do is share my expertise, my colleagues' expertise, and try and get you answers to your questions about the FAFSA.
Thanks so much, Brendan, for joining today. I want to go over a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. Again, if you have questions, you can place them in the chat. Some of the questions we'll cover probably generally with some other questions that we receive, but there's new questions. We'll take a look. I'll scroll the chat just a bit to see what questions they are as we go through the session. Also, for assistance after this chat, you can contact our colleagues at uAspire. They work around the clock to help students as they navigate these affordability needs, and so we partner with them to make sure that you get those resources as well. Also, don't include your personal information in the chat today. There'll be opportunities where we'll connect you with the uAspire team, and you can ask those more connected questions that include your personal information. We wouldn't want that to be spread throughout the live as well. We'll also record this live, or we are going to record this live, and we'll save it, and it'll be available on the on the Common App Instagram page, as well as we do have some resources on YouTube as well that can assist you. So let's jump right in and get started because today we're going to be talking about the 2025-2026 FAFSA that's just been made available. Of course, for those who don't know what the FAFSA is, the free application for federal student aid that you fill out in order to receive federal aid for college. And so in the chat today, we're going to post some links. You can link out to Common App's Paying for College page where we have more information that links you directly to the FAFSA as well as information about scholarships and other resources that we provide to support students. Also, if you have a Common App account, you can go inside your Common App account to the financial aid tab of your account, and you'll be able to find information that directs you correctly to the FAFSA, as well as provide you with other information about scholarships as well. Our Reach Higher team, which is a team that's used to support students as well throughout our organization, they are also posting links inside this chat. So definitely follow the links to get those resources that you need from our uAspire partners as well as the Common App team. So Brendan, let's jump right into the first question. Why do you think it is important that anyone who's considering college complete the FAFSA?
So college is expensive. The costs are really high, and financial aid helps make it more affordable, and helps decrease those costs. And so the FAFSA is the key to unlocking federal financial aid, but also a lot of colleges and states require you to complete the FAFSA to access their financial aid as well. So ultimately, and simply, it helps decrease the cost of college. And so that's why you should complete the FAFSA.
So along those lines, okay, the FAFSA is open now. It has been open for a couple of weeks now for students largely to be able to complete it. So now that it's out, when is it due?
So that is a great question. So deadlines vary based on the colleges you're applying to and how you're applying. And so a college may have different deadlines based on whether you're applying early action, early decision, regular decision, if they're open enrollment. But then also if you're a new student, returning student, and transfer student. Simply put, each college, you should check with your college to see what the deadline is. And if you're applying to multiple colleges, you should fill out your FAFSA by the earliest deadline available. Also, I do want to flag, so this year the FAFSA, I think it fully launched November 21st. This was a unique year. These past 2 years have been a little bit unique. In the future, we expect the FAFSA to go back to launching October 1st. And so even though it came out in November this year, October 1st in the future is when you should see the FAFSA become available.
Great thoughts. As a reference point, if you're applying using the Common App to a particular college, you can go to their college page and you should be able to link out to their website, which will take you directly to find out information about their financial aid deadlines, important information that you need to complete. So take advantage of your Common App account in that way. You can also use our Explore Colleges tab for those nearly 1,100 members that we have in our application platform, that you can find out more information about their financial aid deadlines, their admissions deadlines, and other things that correlate with completing these next steps for affordability. So along those lines, we heard that there may be last year some issues with the FAFSA, maybe a lot of issues, maybe, as we're getting started. So what progress has been made to fix those particular issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, last year there were a bunch of issues with the FAFSA. It was a turbulent year for the FAFSA application and getting financial aid on time and all of that stuff. Starting in October, federal student aid started beta testing the 25-26 FAFSA. So that's the FAFSA that you'd want to fill out now to get financial aid in fall 2025. They started beta testing it and testing it across the country with students, colleges, students in colleges. And so they did that in October and November, and they were able actually to launch the FAFSA earlier than they predicted in November because it was working so well. uAspire, we participated in the beta testing, and when we were filling it out with students, we didn't see many issues. So the FAFSA is actually working really well because they tested it over the past 2 months and fixed all the issues that they saw. And so if you heard about the FAFSA not working right, don't worry about it for 25-26. It's now working a lot better. It's a much smoother process. So you can go fill it out right now and not worry about all of those glitches that maybe you saw last year if you're a returning student.
Great news to hear. The FAFSA is going great this year, so please make sure to take advantage of it. If someone hasn't started, we've been talking about the process of it being open. If they haven't started yet, where do they begin?
So the first thing you're going to want to do is go to studentaid.gov and create an account. And so that's a username and password that you would use to access the FAFSA. You can't start the FAFSA online without it. A few other things that you can do to sort of get started is figure out who else needs to be included on your FAFSA. So for many students, they need to include their parent on the FAFSA. That parent will, or parents will need an FSA ID as well. And so they'll need to create one too. And then after you create your FSA ID, the best thing you can do is go and complete the form. You can access it on studentaid.gov, or you can go to FAFSA.gov. It takes you to the same website. To get to the FAFSA, log in with your FSA ID or studentaid.gov account. Those are the same thing. And then start completing the form and inviting your contributors to complete their sections as well.
So at this point, I want to take a question that we received from a user, and I hope they joined today. The username is Unfinished Jams. So they had a couple questions that I want to ask you, Brendan. If I'm 18, can I be considered independent on the form?
So this is a question that we get all the time. And so to be considered independent due to age, you've got to be a bit older than 18. And so if you were born before 2002, in general, then parent info usually isn't required. But otherwise, parent information will be required if you're 18, 19, 20. They still require parent information. And so unless you're considered independent for other reasons, so that could be, just going to name some other reasons, if you were in foster care, if you're in a legal guardianship, those are other reasons you could be considered independent. There's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go through them now. But age, you have to be well above 18 to be considered independent. And so being born before 2002, in general, is what we say.
Another question that came up too as well is, can international students fill out the FAFSA?
So usually international students are not eligible to complete the FAFSA. The FAFSA is to get federal financial aid from the US government. To complete the FAFSA, you need to be a US citizen or an eligible non-citizen, like a permanent resident. There are some other statuses that do qualify as well. I would encourage you to go to studentaid.gov to check it out. If you're like, well, I have this status, could I be eligible? If you are an students and how you could access that. Some colleges that require the CSS profile, which is another form that some private colleges and public colleges do require, might have you fill out that form to access financial aid. And so really for international students, it's going to be a college by college basis, whether you can access financial aid from that college and how you need to do that.
I saw a question in the chat from Luce5. I think this is good to connect here. It says, my daughter's 21 and a sophomore. Do I have to claim her as a dependent until when? Or how long do I have to claim her as a dependent, I guess, as to be connected to the FAFSA?
So, so if your daughter's 21, you still need to provide your information on the FAFSA for that. And so, like I said before, if the student was born before the year 2002, then they would not be required to provide parent information. But until then, and this obviously that year changes every year of the FAFSA. That year is going to shift a little bit. So I just want to be very clear. Doesn't say the same. But until then, parent information would be required. I do also want to name that there are some for like a master's degree and some other programs like medical degrees. Those colleges, if someone's going beyond undergrad, they also may still require parent information, even though a student could be 25, 26. They could still ask for that parent info. They have different policies, but I don't want to get us confused there. But yes, you would still need to be included on the FAFSA. I also want to name that claiming someone on taxes does not determine whether or not you need to be listed on their FAFSA or not. Those are two separate things. Taxes and the FAFSA are two separate.
All right. Quick thought there. You have any other top tips that you would like to give students as it relates to the form?
Absolutely. So number one, the FAFSA is working. So get started right away. If you can get started today, get it submitted and just get it done with is my number one tip. Otherwise, things that can be helpful is if you can identify who's a contributor, so who else's information is required on your FAFSA before getting started, that can be super helpful because early on in the form, you need to invite those people so that the parents or spouse to complete their section of the form, and having their information makes it a lot smoother of a process. Um, it's even better if everyone is just there with you filling out the FAFSA. Make it an event. Make it a family event. Hey, everyone, I'm filling out the FAFSA today. Let's all get in the same room. Let's just get this done with. And so those are my tips. The other piece would be uAspire is the FAFSA checklist that we use, but there are a lot of other tools out there to help gather all the information you'll need beforehand. I would say find a tool that lists everything you need and start gathering that information so you can just get the FAFSA done in one sitting.
What advice would you give for mixed status families?
Absolutely. So I know there are definitely some concerns that have been raised around sharing data on the FAFSA for mixed status families. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that term, a mixed status family is a family where individuals have different citizenship statuses. And so an example would be a child is a U.S. citizen, but the parents are undocumented or do not have social security numbers. I want to be clear, in that scenario, that child is eligible for federal financial aid, but they need to complete the FAFSA to access it. But for the FAFSA, there's current federal law that does prohibit the use of data for any other purposes than determining federal financial assistance when providing information on the FAFSA. But we can't predict the future or guarantee how that data is protected. And so at uAspire, we believe that decision is up to the families to make for how they share data with the form, and how they move through the FAFSA together. And so that's a family decision to make around sharing data with the FAFSA, which is a federal form.
Let's turn to some questions about contributors to those particular forms. One question that we received from a user is, what if a step parent makes a lot of money, but they won't be paying for college? Will their income and information affect how they receive aid, how the student receives
So
aid?
yeah, so step parents' information does count, and so their income will be included on the FAFSA, and will be considered in the financial aid calculation. And usually, a parent or step parent saying, "I'm not going to contribute," is not a reason why colleges would exclude their information from their financial aid calculations. Um, it is possible. So if there are other circumstances that you need to explain to the college, you could try appealing and explaining what is going on to the college to see if they're willing to exclude that info. But usually, in my experience over the last decade of doing this, I haven't seen that be very successful for students appealing for a reason like a step parent doesn't want to provide their information or isn't going to be contributing to college. So yes, their information would impact the amount of financial aid you can get.
Let me connect another question to that thought. What if a parent maybe decides that they don't want to include their information on the form? How does that impact the student's ability to receive financial aid?
It has a large impact, and so unless there are extenuating circumstances, and then usually for students whose parents are just refusing to provide information, but the student would normally be a dependent student that requires that parent info, um, they would be able to fill out the FAFSA, but they'd only be eligible for a direct unsubsidized loan. And so that's a loan where interest accrues to our colleges from the loan is from the federal government. And so we really like to try and work through those scenarios with students, like to have the financial aid office potentially talk to that parent to explain, just because a parent includes their information on the FAFSA does not mean they're required to pay anything for a college education. It is just providing them their information so colleges can use that to help determine how much financial aid they're eligible for. And so we do encourage multiple conversations, calling the financial aid office, seeing if they're willing to talk to a parent as well, to sort of navigate through whatever's going on so that that information get on the form and the student can be eligible for as much financial aid as they can get.
We see additional question. This is related to loans that you just mentioned. This username hide and go seek has a question. What is a direct loan master promissory note? And how does entrance loan counseling apply for undergrad students? Like how do they complete that, and how should they fill out these things?
Absolutely. So that's a great question. Like, what happens after the FAFSA, right? So after you finish the FAFSA, what for the colleges you get into, you'll get financial aid offers, and those are going to have financial aid on them, and so that can be grants, scholarships, loans, and work study. Federal loans do require two things for you to access them. They require you to complete a master promissory note, which is basically an agreement saying I will repay this loan. And you fill it out on studentaid.gov after logging in with that account that you created to fill out the FAFSA. You're going to log in with that, and you'll be able to complete your master promissory note. In addition to borrow federal loans, you're required to go through entrance loan counseling. How I would think about that is it's a course explaining everything you need to know about those loans that you're borrowing that they want you to navigate before you can access them. And so those are two requirements. They're both accessed on studentaid.gov. Once you log into your account, you can complete both the master promissory note and entrance loan counseling. I do want to be clear, you do not need to complete those until you have financial aid offers in hand, you know where you're going, and you know that you're actually borrowing loans for college next year.
To go point. Two follow-ups that I saw in the chat related to contributors. First is, how does a partner, not a married partner, just maybe a live-in partner, factor into a student's financial aid that is not the parent of that student?
Got it. So if you're living with a partner but you're not married, I'm assuming there's no common law marriage or anything like that. So that person would not be listed on your FAFSA. You would only list your information. In order for a spouse to be listed, you need to be married to them. And so that person, even though you live with them, it wouldn't impact the financial aid.
And the second question I saw was related back to a step parent. What if that step parent is caring for other children outside of the home? Would that be factored into their contributions as well?
So that is a great question. And there's really no place to put that on the FAFSA. It could potentially impact family size depending if they meet the qualifications to be listed in family size. They've made those qualifications a little bit stricter in the last year. And so I would say look on the FAFSA to see what those qualifications are. The other piece that you can consider is after filling out the FAFSA and looking at the colleges, and you can talk to the college financial aid office and say, hey, these are additional expenses my family has, and see if they're willing to consider an appeal. College financial aid offices have an appeals process, and so navigating through that, providing proof, they could consider that into their equation for how much financial aid you may be able to receive. But otherwise, it might be hard for them to know about those other expenses.
So here's another question. It notes, I don't think I'll get financial aid for college. Should I still fill out the form? What types of aid could I receive?
Yeah, so yes, I think everyone should at least apply for financial aid once and see what they can get. I actually encourage people to fill out financial aid forms every year, even if they don't get financial aid. Many people are surprised that they receive financial aid. I've worked with many students and families who've said, I'm not going to get anything. It's like, let's just fill it out and see. And colleges come back and provide grants, scholarships, loans, work study. Worst case scenario, you fill out the FAFSA and you don't get any financial aid. Best case scenario, you do get financial aid. And so in order to see what you're eligible for, you do need to go through the process to see what financial aid you can receive. And students can receive all different types. And so grants, scholarships, loans, work study. Students who aren't eligible for Pell Grants can still get grants and scholarships from their college. And so don't make that decision for the colleges. Let them make the decision on how much financial aid to award for you. If you don't apply for it, you're definitely not going to get any.
Great advice. Let's turn to deadlines a bit. So, if the college has a different deadline, maybe for early action applicants, and a student is looking to navigate those deadlines, may have missed it, would they still get aid? How can they know that they would still get aid, or what process should they follow to connect with that school?
Yeah, so this is the policy is probably going to vary from college to college. And so I've worked with a lot of students who have missed deadlines and they've still gotten financial aid. But there are some colleges that are a lot stricter. One of the key things that we always say in financial aid is it's first come, first serve. And so basically trying to get your information in there as soon as possible to be considered to make sure they don't run out of financial aid. And so it's possible if you miss a deadline, a college has awarded a bunch of funds out and they don't have more money in the budget to award it. But what I would say is if you miss a deadline, get the financial aid application or FAFSA in as soon as possible after you realize you missed that deadline. So sort of get things in as soon as possible, connect with the financial aid office, see if there's any additional information you can provide. Because there are colleges who are more lenient around deadlines, and there are other colleges that are more strict. And so just trying to get everything in, even if you miss the deadline, is a best practice.
All righty. And I'll take the final two questions that appeared in the chat. The first question is, how long do parents have to be living in the U.S. or been a U.S. permanent resident for a student, I guess, to be eligible for aid?
So a student's eligibility for financial aid has to do with their status.
Yes.
And so it's all about the student status and not about the parent status. And so I guess that's how I would answer that question. It's about the student and what their citizenship status or permanent residency status or eligible non-citizenship status is to be eligible for federal financial aid and to complete the FAFSA.
Absolutely. And the next question is about a family who may be living with a grandparent. Does that if they're living there, the mom and maybe the child are living with the grandparent, does the grandparent have to be included as a contributor on the form?
So no, grandparents, unless they've adopted the child, would not be considered a parent on the FAFSA. And so parents are adoptive or biological parents on the FAFSA. Grandparents, for the most part, grandparents are not included. And in that scenario, the grandparent would not be included. Their income would not be included on the FAFSA. It would be the parent's income and the student's income that would be included on the FAFSA.
All righty. So parents' income and students' income that will be included on the FAFSA. You broke up a little bit. Can you explain, finally, can you explain a little bit more about reporting assets on the FAFSA?
Yeah, so on the FAFSA, it does ask for a number of different types of assets to be reported. And so traditional bucket, cash, savings, checking accounts are all required to be listed on the FAFSA. In addition, investments are included. And so that could be stocks, bonds, mutual funds. I did see a question earlier about cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency is an asset, so that would be included on the FAFSA. And so they do list all the different types of assets that are included. Also, the net worth of a small business, the net worth of a family farm would be included as well. I do want to be clear about some things that are definitely not included. The home you live in, that is not reported as an asset on the FAFSA. Retirement accounts are not reported as assets on the FAFSA. And life insurance is not reported as assets in the FAFSA. There's really good help text on the FAFSA explaining everything that's included and not included. And so I would say while you're filling that out, check that out, especially if you have more unique assets and you need to decide whether or not to include them.
And with that, thank you, Brendan, so much for answering all of our questions today. We got a load of questions about the form. We were able to make it through all of them. Thank you to everyone for chatting with us today regarding completing the FAFSA form. Remember, it's live now. You can go there, you complete it. Our colleagues over at uAspire are hosting a walkthrough tomorrow as well. And so we've linked that in the chat as well if you want to find out more information about that. This live will be recorded and we will post it on our Instagram. So feel free to go back and listen again. Oh, I saw Unfinished Jams. I'm glad we were able to answer your questions. Thanks so much for joining. So thanks again. We hope you stay well and stay safe and enjoy this weather outside, whether it's hot or cold, wherever you are. Have a great evening. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.